All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Atmabodha, class by Krishnaphani Kesiraju. Thank you so much, Krishnaphani ji, for always taking us so patiently through everything. Thank you so much. We can start with the school prayer. Ravi will chant the school prayer, after which Krishnaphani ji will do the Gayatri Mantra and Asatoma. Thank you.
O hidden light, vibrant in every atom, O hidden light, shining in every creature, O hidden power and oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other.
Thank you. Krishnaphani ji.
Om Bhurbhuvasvaha Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvasvaha Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Bhurbhuvasvaha Om Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrutyorma Amrutangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Krishnaphani ji. We'll start.
Yeah. I will share the screen. Yeah. We are taking up verse number 25. Okay. There seems to be some disturbance. Could the participants kindly mute themselves? The School of Ancient Wisdom, the host may kindly mute his.
By the blend.
Sheikh Sanawar Basha, Dr. Sana, kindly mute your. Thank you. The School of Ancient Wisdom, I request the School of Ancient Wisdom also to kindly mute. Thank you. It is still on.
Krishnaphani ji, just call them and tell them to mute. You can go ahead.
Right, okay. Now, we are going to take up the 25th verse. Atmahanaha Satchidamshaha Satchidamshascha Buddher Vrittiritidvayam Samyojya Chavivekena Janamiti Pravartate. The Atman is an aspect of, or is an amsha of Sat and Chit. So that means there is a reality of existence and consciousness, and these two aspects are what are said to be the attributes of Atman. As I said earlier, when I say attributes, I am only using an English term just to say that these are inherent in the Atman and cannot be treated as attributes by themselves. Now, when it comes to the thought, buddher vrittihi is the second aspect of it. That means there is the Atman on one side and the buddhi, the activity of the buddhi. Vritti means modification or activity. These are two aspects. This dvayam means duality or twofold aspect of it. These are brought together, sanyojya, through what? Through aviveka, through indiscriminate understanding of it. And what does this do? This gives rise to the notion that I know, janamiti pravartate. So there is actually a kind of a combination of the aspect of Atman, which is essentially pure existence and pure consciousness, and the modifications that occur in the buddhi. Buddhi here includes the manas. As we have seen earlier, what is called as the inner organ is composed of manas, buddhi, ahankara, and chitta. Now, buddhi and manas here sometimes they are used loosely also as a combination of the two also, because one is considered to be that which cogitates and that which is involved in analysis, the other in the decision making process. That's the normal distinction that is given in Vedanta for manas and buddhi. Now this combination is on account of a false understanding that they are not considered as separate in themselves, and there seems to be an involvement through ignorance, which is what aviveka means. Through that arises the notion. Through that arises the notion that I know, janami. I know, I am there. This I know is actually a kind of a false consequence of this combination, which is brought about through lack of discrimination and ignorance. This is the fundamental aspect which one needs to understand, so that where does this sense of I come about? If we examine carefully, the human constitution the most active principle or level of consciousness at which we function is the mind. The mind draws all inputs from the senses and progressively creates an identity. Because earlier we have seen that this aspect of experience, knowledge, and memory is a functionality of the mind, whereby in a very peculiar manner the content is creating the container. I hope you are able to appreciate this fact. It is the content of the mind which is creating an identity of the container. Suppose, hypothetically, let us say, there is a human being who does not have memory. What happens to such a person? He will only be experiencing certain things and instinctively responding to those things. That's all. If there is something pleasant, he will get attracted to it. If something which is dangerous or harmful, he will recoil from it. But because there is no memory, he will be repeatedly doing the same thing again. He'll be falling into the same trap again and again, and there is no question of progress. A human being without memory cannot progress at all. On the other hand, there are great chances that he will actually perish physically. Because if I say inadvertently through my ignorance, I fall down and hurt myself. But I don't have memory. I have experienced it, but I don't have the memory of hurting myself. The hurt may be visible and I may understand it, I may experience it, but it doesn't get recorded. Then what happens? I fall again. And maybe from a higher, from a much higher point. Then what happens? You will be hurting yourself severely. So this memory is an important element in the whole structure of human evolution, which is the repository of experiences and the knowledge that has been acquired or accumulated through those experiences. Some disturbance is there. Could you kindly participate?
Mr. Dayananda, can you please mute?
Please mute yourself. Kindly.
And Manjula Devi.
Kindly. Yes, Mr. Dayananda Mane. Can you mute yourself? Please. There is some disturbance, background disturbance, because this is getting recorded, sir.
And Manjula Devi also is unmuted. Can you please mute?
So, here, what is happening is the inputs through the senses through which one has an experience, and through that experience, he is gaining some knowledge, what to do, what not to do, how to do it, how not to do it. Now, this experience and knowledge, unless it is stored in memory, both these aspects of experience and knowledge will be of no consequence at all. Okay? So, this is the content of the mind. Experience, knowledge, and memory is the content of the mind. But this content is progressively creating an identity called the I. Can you just hold on for a minute? I'll get some water.
I can still see some people unmuted. Mr. Dayananda, please mute. Mr. Dayananda, please mute. And Manjula Devi, can you please mute? Manjula Devi, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. So a peculiar aspect is evolving. This experience and knowledge also includes the aspects of identification as I am so and so. This is my experience. This is my knowledge. This is my memory. So a very peculiar thing is happening. It is creating the content. The content creation is creating the container also, or the identity of the container. So the content is progressively accumulating through life. And it is strengthening the whole structure created by the content. It is creating the whole structure of the content. That structure is being identified with itself, and it is saying that I am all this content. I am all this. I am all this. Do you understand the problem? Do you understand the nature of things that are happening? So you are developing the what is called as the sense of I, the ego. And right from the beginning, the experiences are classified for the purpose of knowledge. Broadly, they are classified as 2 or 3, but that is not important. The classification could be any number. That it is pleasureful, it is giving me pleasure, or it is giving me pain, or it is damaging my image, or it is neutral in some respects, or repulsive in some other respects. So this is the continuous thing that is going on. And therefore, there is this conflict. And are the experiences stopping? No. The experiences are continuing. And in this process, another dangerous thing that is happening is my existing experience, knowledge, and memory is creating several barriers. It is not allowing all the experiences to enter into it. It is filtering the experience. It is creating a barrier. It's creating a barrier. So this barrier is further limiting the entity. So you see the nature of this whole process, that we are progressively enclosing ourselves in narrower and narrower and smaller space. And that is what is continuing to identifying itself as the me, the I, the mine, that I know and I don't know, and how I understand the whole process. So this is what is happening. We need to recognize this very carefully. We can examine ourselves. If we closely sit and examine our own processes, if I examine my mental activity, which is again actually a dichotomy, a false way of doing it. We are assuming that there is an entity called the observer and there is an entity called as observed, which itself is a false thing and a dichotomy. But let us live with it for some time. Let us live with that dichotomy for some time. We will remove that division or dichotomy at a later stage. But if I am able to observe myself, I am able to see this nature of things that are happening. So this is a very, very important aspect of knowing oneself, which is Atmabodha. Being more and more aware of the self, more and more awakened to what I am identifying myself as the self. It is that entity which is self-limiting and self-enclosing. Self-limiting and self-enclosing to the extent that it has completely isolated itself from everything else. So from a very broad perspective, there is only the me and the not me. The me is one strong entity for me, which is, as I said, self-limiting and self-enclosing, and the whole world is not me. The whole world is not me. Now, how do you live in this context? You will be very selective in what you think, what you do, what you utter, what you imagine. You will selectively receive only things from outside the world, which the world may not oblige, because there are so many others also in the world like us. So they will also be having their own way of looking at the world. And therefore, there is always a, what is called as a limitation on what you want or what you seek or what you actually grab from the world, because somebody else is also grabbing a part of it. Then what happens? It is bound to result in conflict. This conflict results in sorrow and suffering. So there is another dimension to it also, whereby it brings about this element of fear. Like, I may lose what I have. Or I may not get what I want. This is the reason why in the Bhagavad Gita, very interestingly, Sri Krishna says, if you leave things to me, if you constantly dwell in me, if you devote yourself to me in all respects, in whatever you do, if you are integrated with me and my consciousness, I will take care of your yoga and kshema. The mind is always involved in these two aspects. What does yoga means? Adi Shankaracharya very beautifully gives in his commentary that apraptasya prapanam yogaha. Aspiring for and getting what you don't have is yoga. And what is kshema? Praptasya rakshanam kshema. Kshema is protecting what you have. So the mind is always involved in this duality, trying to get what it doesn't have, and somehow protecting what you have. Left to oneself, this is not possible. Left to oneself, this is not possible, because I'll not always get what I want. And I will have the constant fear of losing what I have, and it happens also. Anything material over a period of time, progressively it is likely to wither away, decay, deteriorate, and go. Whether it is things, whether it is human beings, whether it is ideas or concepts or experiences. They are all material in one way. So you are bound to lose them. What is the means of ensuring that these two things happen? The only means, he says, is Ananyas chintayanto mam yejanah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahami. Ananyas chintayantah. You should, leaving out everything else. You dwell in me. You think of me. You worship me. You devote yourself to me. And nityabhiyuktanam. You are forever united with me. Only for such people I am going to ensure their yoga and kshema. Arranging for what they want and ensuring that they don't lose what they have. There is a very deeper and esoteric meaning also in this. If you are really in that state of consciousness, of that unity with the divine, you don't want anything and you don't possess anything. So you are already in a state where your yogakshema is taken care of, because you have nothing to gain and nothing to lose. You aspire for nothing else. That is what we are looking at. And the nature of the mind has to be understood correctly. The nature of the mind has to be understood very carefully. One aspect I have been always emphasizing is this experience, knowledge, memory. A combination of these three things continuously, progressively accumulating. Then dwelling in the past. All our experiences, all our knowledge and all our memory is the past. Only when you are actually experiencing in the present, an experience is an experience. The moment that experiencing part is not there, it is immediately converted into knowledge and stored in memory. So experience, knowledge and memory which we have is always the past. This is another dimension we have to understand. So nothing fresh can happen in the mind. Even if something fresh happens, you simply convert it into knowledge and memory.
Sarji, please repeat it.
Sir, this experience, knowledge, memory is always of the past. This is of the past, isn't it? Because if I am undergoing an experience right now in this moment, momentarily it remains as experiencing, a verb in the present continuous, right? But this experiencing is not going to be forever like that. It is moment to moment. So this moment I experience something. Next moment, this particular experience has been shifted into that arena of knowledge and memory. So the mind is always composed of the past only. Mind is composed of the past. There is nothing fresh in it, nothing new in it. Because the moment something new comes, you convert it into an experience. That experience becomes, from that experience, you draw some knowledge and store it in memory. And it is always dependent for its activities on the external world. This is another fact which we have to recognize. Therefore, what is happening is, again coming back to my point, without going into analysis of how did it come about, how it is going to, that issue we will address later. Because how did the mind come about? How did this memory issue came into being? That's a matter of explanation. We are not interested in the explanation. The fact of the matter is, I have a consciousness in me and a faculty in me which is progressing this way. As experience, knowledge, memory, and the past. And creating a huge division. It's a kind of a, division which is not so easily possible to bridge. The me and the not me, the me and the not me, the me and the not me. Is there any means to bridge this difference or this division? As of now, we don't have. Because the hold of the me is so strong. And this me is bound to be in conflict, bound to be in fear, bound to be sorrowful, bound to be suffering. So this nature is what we are dealing with. The so-called Atman is unidentifiable in us at the present moment. What I know is that I am so-and-so. This is my background. This is how I identify myself, whether with my name, form, knowledge, experiences, expertise, my learning, my reading, my studying, my whatever you may call it as, whatever you may call it as. All that is the me. Now, unless this operation of the me comes to a complete halt, nothing new can operate in this consciousness. So in this particular verse, without going much into further detail, he is trying to tell you that this existence consciousness aspect is blending itself with this thought process and creating an identity called as the I. And the I says, I know, I feel, I experience, and all that whole thing, the whole process, that's what is happening. So this is the issue with which we are involved. So it is trying to tell you that this notion of I know arises out of this blending through lack of discrimination. Now, why do we have that lack of discrimination? Because that's the nature of things in which we are involved as of now. What is being explained to us is being explained from a different plane of understanding. Unless we come to that plane of understanding, we cannot really deeply understand the nature of this Atman. Earlier, we have seen in the past, right from the beginning, in several of these verses, they have emphasized on what is not the Atman. Now they are trying to tell us what is the nature of this Atman. Indicatively, it is saying that this nature of this Atman is existence and consciousness, Sat and Chit. Once it is involved in ignorance and caught in this, it cannot have that dimension of bliss manifesting here. Therefore, they have eliminated the idea of Ananda. The reason for only including two, Sat and Chit, you will find this several times happening there. They don't talk about Ananda at all. Why is it they don't talk about Ananda? Because that element cannot manifest when you are continuously self-limiting and self-enclosing yourself, the consequence of which can only be suffering and not bliss. So this factor has to be very clearly understood, that I am constantly limiting myself and enclosing myself into a narrower and smaller space through my own activity. The mind, through its own activity, is creating this and identifying itself as somebody or something, and creating this vertical division of the me and the not me. And there is no means of bridging these two unless this self-limiting and self-enclosing activity is stopped. He goes one step further in the next verse and brings another dimension of this Atman and the Buddhi. It says, Atmano vikriya nasti buddher bodho na jatviti jiva sarvamalam jnatva jnata drishteti mukhyati. This is a very important verse. This is a very important verse. We will spend some time on it. He says, another dimension of the Atman. Earlier dimension we have seen is, it is Sat and Chit aspect. And what is the Buddhi? Buddhi is involved, or the mind is involved in a process, which he calls it as the thought wave. Okay? Now here he says, Atmanaha vikriya nasti. Atman does not involve itself in any activity whatsoever. There is no vikriya. Vikara means modification or change, or the term kriya, as it indicates action, it refers to saying that it is actionless. It does not involve itself in any action whatsoever. It does not do anything. That is the nature of the Atman. That is one of the aspects of the Atman. And what is the aspect of the Buddhi? Bodho najatviti. On its own, the Buddhi has no capacity of being aware of things. The Buddhi, or as I said earlier, some of the commentators have said that Manas and Buddhi are considered to be equivalent in this, and when they use the term, it also includes Manas, or it can be, it will be referring to Manas only. But basically, the cogitative and discriminative part of our understanding or our mind has no awareness of itself on its own. Only when there is a combination of these two, the idea of I comes about. You see the nature of the Atman and nature of the Buddhi. Buddhi has no bodha or awakening, awareness, experience as itself through some identifying process. And the Atman is totally actionless and is not involved in any activity whatsoever. It does not indulge in anything. But the beauty of it is, a combination of these two brings about this entity which we have discussed earlier in detail, which I am calling it as the I and the aspect of I know. Then what is happening here? The Jiva has come into being now. The Atman and Buddhi, Atman and Manas, operating through an entity, through an embodiment, through an instrument like the body, has created this entity called as the Jiva. And what does the Jiva think of itself? Through illusion, that I am the knower, I am the seer. It thinks that I am the knower and I am the seer. This is the problem. It is creating what is called as kartrutva, drashtrutva and bhoktrutva. Kartrutva is that I am the doer or I am the agent who does things. Drashtrutva is I am the agent who sees. Bhoktrutva is that aspect of I am the enjoyer and I am the knower. So it is sufficiently becoming deluded and involved in this world now. Left to themselves, or if you are looking at them as separate entities, this is only for explanation. Kindly understand that the Atman does not involve in any action is one aspect of it. The functioning of the buddhi without the presence of the Atman would be totally useless or worthless, because there is nothing for it to become aware of itself. It is this Atman principle, when it pervades this buddhi, is creating that identity which we called as the I. And through the operation of these two aspects, through a body, through an embodiment, is creating these aspects of jnata and drashta. That I am the knower, I am the seer. And how does it do it? Muhyati, he says, through delusion. It thinks that I am all this. I am the doer, I am the knower, I am the enjoyer, I am the seer. All these things are coming into being. So this dichotomy has to be clearly seen to understand the illusory nature of this identifying mechanism. That is the reason why I have dwelt upon the activities of the mind so much. I dwelt upon it so much to indicate to you, see, talking about transcendental aspects, spiritual aspects, and going on explaining about the Atman and other things is not of much consequence. Let us begin from the known. The known fact is that I am there, right? Right from the time of birth, there is a sense of existence. There is a sense of a life form operating through this body. That means this body is alive. When I mentioned earlier, when consciousness enters into an instrument or an entity or a body, or when there is a coming together of these two, then the entity becomes self-aware. So one of the dimensions or aspects of this Atman is this consciousness also. That is why they have mentioned it as Sat and Chit. So there is this entity now called as the Jiva. Now what is the Jiva doing? Experiencing, gathering knowledge, storing in memory, and progressively self-limiting and self-enclosing itself. So in fact, while our experience and knowledge and memory may appear to be expanding in one respect, because we have more experience, more knowledge, and more memory, it may appear to be expanding. It is actually contracting itself into a very, very narrow and limited space. It is limiting and enclosing itself more and more and more and more. This is the aspect of, in one way, what is called as this, the quantum dimension coming into picture here. On one side, I feel that I am expanding. I feel that, yeah, I have gained more experience, more knowledge, and more memory and more articulation. And I have read so much, I have known so much, I've come to know all these things. So if you compare yourself from the age of 5 or 6, it may appear to be that this I is growing and growing and growing. But from the other dimension, I am creating barriers. I am not allowing certain experiences to filter through because I don't like them. I am not accumulating certain knowledge because I don't want that knowledge or don't find any importance or use of that knowledge. So at every level, I'm going on filtering and filtering and filtering and coming to a stage where I am limiting myself and enclosing myself and creating and living in a shell. This dimension has to be very clearly understood. So this is where we are stuck. This is where we are stuck. This is our present condition. Somebody has discovered something new, something much more vast. The vastness of life. Let us play another game. Let us say another game. Let us say that I have an instrument or I have a mechanism whereby, without actually undergoing certain experiences myself, I am able to connect to your experience. Connect to your experience. Say I'm connecting myself to the experiences of Janaki Ramji or Bina ji or anybody else. I'm able to say somehow I have. Let us assume that I said this again. I have connected to that now. Like cloud computing or one computer being connected to another computer, where it is able to access all the files in this computer and also in that computer. Some kind of mechanism is there where I'm able to do this. Then what happens? In the true sense, my total repository of knowledge, experiences and memory is actually expanding in the true sense. Because I am connected to your experiences. I'm connected to your memory. I'm connected to your knowledge. This is what is the internet is about, and the connectivity is all about, and how you can link through a closed loop also, say all the computers of all the employees in an organization or something like that. Then what happens? Your computing power, your information base, your ability to operate in a wider field, in a larger area has substantially increased. So, in the absence of such a mechanism, I am actually progressively limiting and enclosing myself. But if I can discover a mechanism where I am connected to everything and everybody, then imagine what happens to me. This identity automatically drops now. This identity is only a mere superficiality. Because the body is there, all of you may identify me as, say, he is Krishnaphani, he is so and so. That's only a superficial end. Inside me, I am connected to all of you. So what has happened? This Atman has now become the Brahman. Brahman, the word Brahman comes from Bruhat. Bruh is the word, root verb, which means vast, infinite, unimaginably large. Then now what has happened? There's absolutely no distinction between you and me, or anything and anybody, everything in the world. There's no distinction between me and the not me at all. The division between me and not me is completely gone. We have to discover that. That is why when Jiddu Krishnamurti defined liberation, he said it is not the individual who is liberated. It is an oxymoron to say I am liberated, which is a foolish way. Think of the I is the problem. What is liberated is not of the self, but from the self. So my limited consciousness functioning through this mechanism has somehow been now connected to the consciousness of everything else. So what is liberated is the limited consciousness with the universal consciousness. Then what has happened now? There's no division. We come back to what Ramana Maharshi said. Where is the other? There is no other. There cannot be any other. Because now I am connected to something infinite. Something greater than all the truths I know. Something greater than all the knowledge I have. Something which is infinite by nature. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma. So, this idea of an illusion of being the knower or the seer or the doer or the enjoyer has to be very clearly understood. Very clearly understood. If it does not sink in sufficiently, it will continue to create this illusion, strengthen this illusion, and also constantly create the conflict. Conflict is inevitable, and the result of conflict is suffering, dukkha. That is what that is the fundamental aspect which the Buddha had identified. The first noble truth is dukkha. Conflict is the first aspect to be discovered, first aspect to be understood. I have to know the disease first to find a cure. I'll go to some I see some chat here. Ramchandran says, so what weakens the container strengthening process? Yeah, in a way, that is what it does. If you see the whole thing at one shot, whatever I have been discussing for the past 40 minutes or so, if you see the whole thing at one shot, then you will know what all the games the mind is playing. Existence and knowledge both are the same sides of the same Atman. Yeah, the Sat and Chit Amsha is there in the Atman. That's what they said. Then why he said indiscriminate blending? Indiscriminate blending with what? Indiscriminate blending with the Buddhi. There is an entity operating through ignorance, which is the manas. Without the presence of the Atman, the manas has no role to play, the buddhi has no role to play. That is why Vedanta has described manas as jada, manas as an insentient material, insentient matter in one way. In one of the discussions, G.D. Krishnamurti is, there's a beautiful dialogue in the Awakening of Intelligence with Professor David Bohm, where Professor David Bohm says, we cannot call mind or thought as purely matter. It is a material process. Mind is not something crystallized and solid out there. Only when there is a dynamic activity in it, when there is something going on it, then only we call it as the mind. That means there should be a process. But this process, he calls it as a material process. This material process functions in the presence of what we call as the Atman, or let us say consciousness. In one context, Krishnamurti had said that when consciousness and matter come together, the mind is born. So, when we say indiscriminate, it only means aviveka or ignorance. Lack of understanding of its true nature is what we are calling as ignorance. So it is a material process that is going on, which cannot sustain and function on its own unless there is this vital principle of the Atman. So therefore, this is what is happening. Okay? I hope Ramchandranji, it is clear. Okay? Thank you. Yeah. So you do you understand the whole process now? Whereby the Atman is to be considered for our understanding only, because we have not actually what is called as a direct experience of it as of now. Because the Atman and Brahman by definition are one and the same. So the vastness of it, how to imagine that, how to understand that, is only through illustrations or examples. Earlier example that was given was of the sky, or what is called as the space, or Akasha as a tattva. This Akasha has peculiar properties. It is uniform and unaffected by anything present in it. Nothing actually touches it, and nothing actually can affect it, and it is uniform. It is absolutely uniform. There is absolutely no difference between if you are able to imagine 1 cubic centimeter of the space and another cubic centimeter of the space. There is absolutely no difference between it. That's what is called as the isotropic property or the uniformity property. That's only given as an illustration. And what is pervading it? What is actually in one way, what is occupying the whole thing? What is occupying the whole thing is identified as Chetana or Chit or Chaitanya. So that is the basis for all material creation. Sometimes it is beautifully described as only a description. Please don't take it to be too real. An aberration, a disturbance a vibration from this uniformity is what brings about matter. So from there, everything else is said to emerge and all that. And then the principle of Vayu, all pervading the space, and a kind of friction in that air, in the Vayu, which causes fire. Okay, that's how Akasha to Vayu, Vayu to Agni, Agni to Apas, water, water to earth. Progressively crystallization into grosser and grosser elements goes about, which we discussed earlier also. But this is for our conceptual understanding only. More important for us to understand is the principle of the mind which is operating through us, creating this entity called as the I, which calls itself as the Jnata, Drashta, Bhokta, or whatever term you use, Karta, Kartrutva and Bhoktrutva, Jnatrutva and Drashtrutva. This is what it is composed of. This is actually an illusion. This is actually an illusion. Why? Because it is progressively creating it. As a newborn child, you have no sense of doership or enjoyership or anything, but from the moment you are born, it is slowly progressing and accumulating and accumulating and accumulating and accumulating, and continuously it is creating. And there, through that comes this sense of the I. And that's why I told you very beautifully, the content creates the container. I don't know if you have heard of what is called as a magnetic bottle. You create a magnetic bottle with magnetic forces. Because there are certain things which cannot be stored in anything material. In anything material, it can't be stored. So you use the magnetic force to create the shape of a bottle through the magnetic field. And you can pour something into it and you can store something into it. Now, is this bottle real? No. The bottle is only a creation through the use of magnetic forces. But it is containing something. And you are able to see that content in the shape of a bottle. Therefore, the container becomes real because of the content. In the absence of the content, you can't see the shape of the bottle. It's created, but you can't see the shape of the bottle. Only when you pour something into it, it will appear in the shape of a bottle. So you see what is happening? The content is creating the container. And as long as the magnetic forces are acting, it will retain that shape. Suppose you withdraw the magnetic field and the magnetic forces, the bottle will collapse. Along with that, the contents will also be lost. So from a scientific point of view also, you can understand what is happening and why it is an illusion. This is what is important for our purpose. So that is the reason why he says, Atmano Vikriya Nasti. Atman never does anything. And the intellect of its own accord has no capacity to experience the I know thing or self-awareness. Then what is happening? But the individuality, the jiva, out of illusion, is considering that I am the seer and I am the knower. Mukhyati, moha. Moha is delusion or illusion. So that is the aspect which we need to understand. Now, it is not just for fun that something is being called as illusion or delusion or unreal. The fact of the matter is, if we examine ourselves very carefully, this becomes something which is real and we can see that as factual. Now, for example, when it comes to physical memory, the brain is there. The brain is an instrument which has where there is an interaction with this mind, and there is the storage of memory. Now, it seems there are two nerves on these sides. If you simply cut those things, you lose total gone. You have no memory at all. You don't even recognize yourself. Now, is the person there or not there? For everybody else to see, there is a physical body. It is alive. But is it interacting with, is that body which is alive, is interacting with anything else? It is not. Why? Because the mechanism is disconnected. Now, the point that is made from a spiritual point of view is, can I disconnect this mechanism and reconnect to a bigger mechanism? Can I disconnect this here and connect it to a universal mechanism? That is where the Atman gets connected to the Brahman and realizes that essentially they are not different. Only through an embodiment, an illusion has been created, and I am now connected to the Brahman. And the identification also drops here. The identification as I as a separate entity is no longer there. Only thing is, as I said, as long as the body is there, you can call it as some with some name or something else and identify that external form, and it's only a superficial identification. The true identity is now a universal identity. That is the nature of the whole thing. I hope I have made myself clear, and I want you to understand the nature of this whole damn thing that is going on. There is some chat again by Ramchandran ji. A new approach to be like Akasha, starting from the known aspects of the bottom-up approach and instead to down in books. Thanks. Instead of top-down. Yeah. No, because we have to start from the known, sir. We have to always start from the known. That is what is most important. Otherwise, from the unknown, there you can't begin from the unknown. The unknown is unknown. As simple as that. It can't be known as we understand. So I hope you've been able to appreciate, or I don't know, very few responses. Was it too heavy, Bina ji? You have to engage.
No, Krishnaphani ji, very clear. Very clear that we are actually, what we do is we combine. Our ego is really what comes in the way. And,
we are the creators of the ego.
And we create.
We are the creators of the sense of I. The content is creating the container.
Correct. And when that
and that itself is self-limiting.
Yeah.
The moment you create
joins this, then ignorance comes into play.
Then the moment you create a container, it is limited, no?
Right.
If you pour the water from the ocean into a glass,
yeah, it's limited.
You have limited yourself.
Right.
So that is the content is creating the container, which is causing the problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vijay Lakshmi ji. Yeah, I see. This is an experiment which I want you to do. My whole point is, it should be an experiential and experimental thing. One should try to experiment with oneself.
Right.
Let us examine our own thoughts and see if the thought is not there. Am I there?
Yeah.
The thought creates the thinker. The thought is creating the thinker. To use Krishnaji's idiom or explanation of it. So the content is creating the container.
Right.
So that is what is important, and that needs to be, carefully examined. And it is not a futile exercise. If you see that, there is a way to connect to the universe. There is a way to connect to the universe. Otherwise, it's all a waste of time, no? Sarangi ji has a question. He says, if I is not there, how the present existence experience? See, the I has come into being through this process, sir. See, there nobody is saying that the I is not there. The I is there. Now this I is a self-limiting and self-enclosing process. That's what I have been emphasizing. The moment a body comes into being, the moment a baby is born, what do? We name it. Right? We address that baby with that name. So progressively what the baby does, the baby identifies itself with this name. You normally ask children, what is your name? They will point to their chest and say, yeah, I am so and so. So what has happened now? An identification process has begun. Now this becomes manifold. This becomes manifold. So your experience, your knowledge, your memory is going on strengthening or creating and strengthening this I. So do we understand this process? And as I said, it is a mystery in one way. On one side, we think that the I is expanding, isn't it? I was not the same person when I was 5 years old. I did not have any knowledge. I did not know reading and writing. So when I have learned reading and writing, I have expanded. When I started thinking, I have expanded. When I have acquired my degrees, qualifications, my job and experience and marriage and children and grandchildren and all that, I feel the whole thing has expanded. But has it really expanded? Because I am creating barriers at each level. I am not allowing certain experiences to come to me. I am not allowing certain knowledge to come to me. I am not allowing the memory to be overloaded. So progressively, I am self-limiting myself also. And going into smaller and smaller and smaller shell. That is the actually reason why older people become more, what we call as rigid, adamant, and stick to their own ideas. That's where people now call us the generation gap and all that. You stick to your ideas because you don't want to allow the ideas of youth to come into you. Of a different nature coming to, no, this is right. So you become rigid in your attitude. That's a limiting process. That's where you are limiting yourself. I to I is the journey. Yeah, ego. See, from the limited consciousness to that unlimited consciousness, you are connecting to that which is infinite. Yeah, after a certain age, even 40, why 40, even less now, 40, 50, 60, it doesn't matter. Ramchandranji, we see, nobody
Ramchandran ji, I don't think anybody can change anybody at any age. It has to come from within. So it has to be that person's doing. So you are not an instrument of change for anybody. I don't think so. And not at any age. Krishnapani ji is gone off. I think he's going to try and reconnect. Is there anybody that wants to discuss something or say something? And I'd encourage you to all please, speak, unmute yourselves and talk to Krishnapani ji, because it just makes it all the more, I mean, when you discuss it, we understand it much, much better. So please feel free to, unmute yourself and talk to Krishnapani ji or air your views, whatever, so that, the understanding is better for all of us. Thank you so much. I think Krishnapani ji is not able to come on. I will just call him and ask him if we...
Yeah, please, Bina.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. Okay, Krishnapani ji is trying to connect through his mobile. I think his power's gone off. So can we just wait for a few minutes? He's coming back on. Jankiram, would you like to say anything?
Hello?
Yes, Jankiram. Yes, please. Go ahead.
It was quite, as we all shared, basically a question of contemplating, particularly the conflicting or not able to understand is Atman is not doing anything.
Right.
Intellect is doing. So what is the role of Atman is not very clear.
Oh. The Atman, as I understand it, is really what makes you aware of anything. It's that self-awareness. Otherwise, if there was no Atman, the intellect can do anything, but who is there to actually observe what is happening?
No, that is, I like the Buddha's approach. You don't talk anything about Atman or soul. Improve your emotions and intellect and behaviors.
Okay.
JD sir. Hello.
Go ahead, Ramchandran ji.
JD sir, the mind is universally accepted as a medium, like a material. It is accepted. Now the question comes to answer what you are asking: how a insentient material can give a first-person experience, and that is not possible for any material. This is where today neuroscientists and the whole world is examining.
Are you able to see me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Krishnapani ji, I think Ramchandran ji is answering a question that Janki Ram brought up. as to what is the role of Atman. So Ramchandranji was answering that. So go ahead, Ramchandranji, and then Krishnaphani will also add to it. I'm sure he will.
Yeah, Krishnaphani, because connection went up.
Yeah.
So what I was telling is, afterwards Sankaracharya says that Atman is not doing anything. Okay, it is an intellect which is thinking and identifying as I know. So what I said is, I find Buddha's approach easier because don't talk anything about Atman. Improve behavior, emotions, and mind and intellect.
JD sir, you didn't answer my question. However, insentient item, a material, can be self-aware and can understand by itself. It is not possible. Everybody understands that. So there has to be something else prevailing, without which it is not possible to know anything. That's the argument given by spiritual gurus. First person experience. It's not possible.
Yeah. Krishnaphani ji, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
You are able to hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
So can we come to that point of see what, from one point of view, as I said, Janakiramji, point in going on because as a side of the Atman is presented. At one level, the body is called as the Atman. For example, there is a term called Atmaja. I call my son, or my son is Atmaja and my daughter is Atmaja. So, technically speaking, there cannot be a son or a daughter without it. So, one body is another body. So, this body at its grossest level also is Atman. The body at the mental level is also the Atman. The body at the level of the Buddhi is Atman. The body at the level of Ahankara is Atman. The body at the level of the trans level also is the Atman.
Because that is the koshas, you have to have upadhis. That is clear. Atman has to take the upadhis.
Have several. Atman has to be really connected. Then it goes on. You expand. From second dimension, you got goes on and on. At a point, there is a what is called as a tipping point, where with the lower ladder to climb. Once you have climbed the roof, you don't really need the ladder now. So whether it is the or the are progressively identified through the expansion of your consciousness, progressively identified through that process. So once the process is over, when you are in a higher dimension, the lower dimension is good. So that is what is to be understood. Atman is progressively expanding and coming to a tipping point where it becomes universal.
At least I will think over and come back. Next week I will not be able to attend because I have some other engagement. Week after that I'll come back.
No issues. Please, you can come back after going into it. We can discuss this aspect further. Is it okay, sir? Shall we? It's already 11:26.
Sir, here we are saying the life principle as the Atman, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are saying life principle as the Atman, which expresses
Yeah, the body, yeah, life principle is a manifestation of the Atman or that consciousness.
or that consciousness.
The body is also a part of that manifestation.
Yes.
But we are not stuck at the body level, isn't it? The body
Right.
identification is one, then we have identification with our thoughts, emotions, mind and feelings and other things.
Yes.
Then that is how we progressively expand to include, whereby everything becomes all inclusive. Everything is included in this.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we will close this session.
Yes, thank you so much, Krishnapani ji. And may we have somebody chant the Loka Samasta? Is Suman there?
Yeah, Suman is there. Suman is
Suman?
there.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Krishnapani ji. And for everybody, we will again meet you on Friday at 10:30. Fridays we meet at 10:30 and Sundays we are meeting at 10. And of course, the school programs are as usual. We have a program on Thursday. All of these programs that we're talking about are posted on the School of Ancient Wisdom group. So please note timings and links from there. Thank you so much. Suman, can we close?
Yes, yes. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Hari Shri Guru Hari Om.
Thank you.
Thank you, once again. Thank you all for participating. Thank you.
Thank you.